It's a notch up from Olive Garden.
Welcome back. Again, we'd like to thank all of our valued sponsors of the NextGen Supply Chain Conference. Our diamond level sponsor, Honeywell Intelligrated, our platinum sponsor, the Association for Supply Chain Management, and our gold sponsor, Alemica. Bob?
Thank you, Brian. Now, I cut my teeth in the materials handling industry. My family's been in the industrial packaging business since I was a little kid, and I grew up traveling with my dad on sales calls during the summer. We visited factories and distribution centers throughout the Midwest. The big change I've witnessed in that industry is a shift in focus from what used to be called speeds and feeds, well, how fast can a conveyor convey and a sorter sort, to a focus on smarter materials movement, made possible by collecting more data from more points inside the four walls of a facility and better software. We heard that from Mark Shirkness this morning. In fact, it's all about the software. That phenomenon isn't limited to just automated systems. Software is transforming all aspects of the supply chain and at an accelerating pace. That's going to be the heart of this block. To kick us off, we want to welcome Gordon Liu, Director of JD International Business for JD Logistics. That's the logistics arm of JD.com, one of the giants of Chinese and global e-commerce. JD.com was also the winner of Digital Transformation Award for supply chain solution providers. Today, Gordon's going to share with us a little about the open platform JD.com has developed for its digital supply chain. Now, this is a pre-recorded presentation, so there won't be a Q&A. Welcome, Gordon.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Gordon Liu from JD.com International Business. I'm also the General Manager of JD International in US. Today is a huge pleasure to join this event with all the experts in this industry and share what we understand about the next generation of supply chain and how it looks from an efficiency perspective. Before I start my presentation, I would like to introduce JD.com and JD Logistics a little bit and share two main factors that have been driving the efficiency of JD supply chain, which is infrastructures and technology. And the last part is to share more understanding about the next generation of supply chain. Let's see JD.com first. Driven by the technology, we became the e-commerce giant, the China's largest retailer, both online and offline. We are also the nation's largest retail infrastructure service provider. In 2018, JD.com became the first Chinese internet company to make the Fortune Global 200. In 2019, we are doing like $82.9 billion US dollars, which is the third largest internet company in the world. We serve hundreds of millions of families in China and is able to reach more than 1 billion users. Currently, consumer is more than 200 countries and regions are able to purchase goods on JD.com. By keeping the delivery better shopping experience, high quality of product to consumers, and zero tolerance of fake product, we win the trust from our customer, and it's driven the rapid growth in the past 7 years for JD.com. JD.com meets the diverse demand of our customer across all categories. By leveraging the network of JD Logistics, we are covering the 99% of population of China. 90% of orders can be delivered by the same or next day, which is our famous 211 service. If the order was placed before 11 a.m., it can be delivered before the same day 11 p.m. If it's placed after 11 a.m., we can make the customer to get the product before 11 a.m. the next day. That's what's being called the JD speed. Technology is always at the heart of JD.com's corporate strategy. JD.com drives real economic transformation through technology innovation. We already have the most in-depth and wide-ranging application of AI, with a large volume of high-value data, can helping the suppliers to drive the efficiency. By utilizing a wealth of data combined with analytical mode, we provide a smart solution for supply chain planning. And we do believe the future of retail would be boundless retail. All the technology and high efficiency supply chain would be enabling customers to buy whatever they want, whenever and where they want it. The next part is about JD Logistics. As you can see, in 2007, we defined logistics one of our core competitiveness. We start to build up the logistics centers in Guangzhou, Shanghai, and Beijing. In 2014, the first smart logistics part started to operate in Shanghai. It's called the Asia #1. And now we have more than 25 Asia #1 in China, and we're going to have more in the future. In 2017, we established the JD.com business group, and that's also the point turned from a in-house fulfillment into open logistic platform. In 2019, we launched the open platform for digital supply chain. JD Logistics is the only platform in the world to provide small to medium-sized warehousing, oversized warehousing, cross-border, cold chain delivery, frozen and chilled warehousing facilities, B2B and cross-sourcing logistics. We are covering 100% of districts and countries in China and managing more than 650 logistics centers with more than 16 million square meters, which is about 176 million square feet. JD Logistics is always focused on the global network. To access the consumer and logistic partner more easier globally, we've set up the overseas network and international long-haul lanes. From the global perspective, JD has a double 48-hour network. That means to entry or leave plus local fulfillment in selected countries. The entire process can be happened within double 48 hours. And right now, currently, we have more than 1,000 cross-border routes to achieve global by global on JD.com. The next part, let's check out the two main factors that driven the efficiency of supply chain. The first one is infrastructures. As you can see, there are over 20 million packages go through JD's network every day, and all of them have to pass through our warehouse. So the first infrastructure I want to talk about is automated warehouse. As you can see here, this is our automated warehouse in Nanjing and Guangxi in China. It's the first fully functional automated warehouse in the world. A total of 40,000 square meter, and it can handle 20,000 electronic and personal care product per day. The robot picking efficiency is 2 times faster than it's done manually, and it can pick around 8,000 orders per hour. In general, the automated warehouse can provide storage efficiency that is like 10 times better than a traditional warehouse can achieve. In the next part, I want to share the delivery vehicles and robots and some technology we've been already used in our daily operation. On the left hand, you can see our delivery vehicles. JD works with a world well-known iconic design company. It is capable of fully self-driving in urban area and able to provide 4,000-liter cargo space. Of course, by eliminating the cockpit. And on the right side, you can see our delivery robot. As you can see, it's already replaced the crew and finished the last mile delivery. We've done a lot of tests in the past, and fortunately, the first delivery was made in Wuhan in February 2020, since the COVID. It truly helped to reduce human-to-human connect when during the pandemic in very serious in China. And it's definitely the ideal solution for last mile delivery during the pandemic. And we've been using that a lot in Wuhan this time. As a core of our warehouse operation, JD has a self-developed WMS system. It is currently used by more than 730 warehouses around the world, which covers 17 million square meters. And it can be applied to diversified business mode like B2B, B2C, direct sales and marketplace, and also automation. It supports different categories, including the electronics, fresh, all the fast-moving consuming goods like books, food, and apparels. Last but not least, it is also highly configurable and so easy to integrate. A well-developed WMS system needs to be prepared with state-of-the-art automation technology. JD have many automation systems, like, for example, multi-layer shuttle storage system, handling AGV good-to-person system, or robotic arms and smart sorting AGV system. All those technology and WMS become the automated warehouse that I mentioned before, which is also the core competitiveness of JD.com until now. In recent years, blockchain has been very popular to improve customer trust and the communication efficiency. JD also put a lot of R&D resource in blockchain technologies. The BOSS is one of them. BOSS stands for Blockchain as a Service. This platform focuses on improving efficiency, reducing the cost of information translation, and improving the customer experience. This technology has been implemented in paperless signing of logistic documentations, electronic VAT invoice, and many more. Through paperless logistics, JD is able to reduce hundreds of hours of information transformations time and save more than 30% of labor hours. And those savings transform near about 400 million RMB in cost reductions. In the meanwhile, the implementation of BOSS also had positive impact of the carbon footprint. It reduced paper usage by more than 5,000 tons. So how JD used big data to build a high efficient logistic network? To answer this question, we need to address this question from those areas. First is warehousing. Based on operation optimization, logistics simulation technology, which can simulate the real scenarios on the platform, and machine learning, JD achieved smart warehousing throughout the whole supply chain, including smart forecast, smart inventory management, smart schedule operation by using the LOT-based technology. JD can improve the sorting accuracy up to 99.99% and improve operation efficiency by more than 5 times. And move to the transportation part. Powered by AI technology and big data, JD can achieve the dynamic transportation routing planning, which can connect the entire sorting process from warehouse to delivery to all the delivery stations. And the cruiser ultimately, it reduces unnecessary touch points during the entire transportation process and also improves the vehicle utilization rate by about 40%. And the last one about big data is the last mile delivery. JD's technology combines the traditional operation research with big data from all the carriers' existing delivery routes and enhancing the efficiency and accuracy from the strategy level. So in this way, JD can work out the best margins for cost and efficiency. The next generation of supply chain and boundless retail is to making the world a little smaller and bring all the people closer together. By leveraging the technology of smart supply chain and high-value data through AI and another innovation, the efficiency of supply chain will keep updating. We believe the short chain and smartness will be the key of the next generation of supply chain. JD has been working in this road for over 10 years, and we are willing to explore more and learn more and also sharing more in the future with all the partners in this industry. Thank you. That's all my sharing today.
I want to thank Gordon for that presentation, and I hope all of you enjoyed getting a glimpse into what's going on in other parts of the world. You know, often we see the things that we see in North America, but don't have visibility into what's going on in Europe, or in this case, China. The other thing I'd like to recommend, Gordon had a slide up there on his automated warehouse. If you haven't seen it, go to YouTube and just put in JD.com automated warehouse or lights out warehouse. There's a great video on all of the things going on in that facility. So here's what's going to happen next. Over the next hour, we're going to hear presentations from 4 supply chain software leaders. They represent different areas of the supply chain. They include automated systems, enterprise software, mobile computing, data collection and workforce execution, and finally, supply chain planning and execution. And after our presenters, we're going to take part in a panel discussion. It's moderated by 2 of our advisory board members, Tom Ward and Darren Millard. Now, they're both practitioners and solution providers in their own right with strong software backgrounds. Tom is the AI project leader at IBM, and Darren is a senior manager for marketing strategy in the global logistics organization at Cisco. Let's welcome our first presenter, Jen Tabbert, who is Director of Software Sales for Dematic.
Thank you so much. I am excited to be here this morning, and I'm going to jump right in because I have a lot to cover with you in a really short time frame. So today I want to discuss optimization, not just within the 4 walls, but beyond the 4 walls, as well as the value of being able to connect those things. So I'm going to start with a quick review of some of the trends in the market that are not just creating, but accelerating the need for this more broadly connected supply chain that we're seeing. Prior to 2020, I think we saw the trends of individualization and speed and urbanization that were already having a very broad impact on the supply chain. So we were seeing things like smaller stores, which meant less storage space, and that was impacting the frequency and the mix and the size of orders that are being shipped to stores. We're seeing customers ordering more tailored products and smaller and often more frequent order sizes. So we're having to be able to deal with an ever-changing SKU mix within our supply chain, as well as a shift from pallet and case picking to more piece picking. And then, of course, we have ever-changing customer expectations, which are meaning that all of these smaller orders need to be put together more quickly and more accurately than ever before. And then, as we're all painfully aware this year, obviously COVID acted as a major disruptor and posed a number of problems for our supply chains and made things a lot more complex. So we're seeing things such as difficulties in staffing our warehouses and keeping up with new social distancing measures. And that's even extending into, our in-store pickers that are picking from stores and crowding now our aisles. And we're going to come back to that in a little bit. So remember that point. We're also seeing a speedier adoption of automation. For example, an ASRS can help recoup up to 85% of floor space as compared to standard shelving. And so this solves both a space problem as well as a labor problem, and also helps us to have the flexibility to maintain greater on-hand inventory and also be able to handle a ramp up of e-commerce volumes. And as our customers are seeking more agile automation, they really need this intelligent software to kind of bind all of these things together in a more holistic and more efficient way. And then, of course, we've seen a massive acceleration of e-commerce. And along with that comes with our customers shifting to more omni-channel distribution and exploring different channels for fulfilling orders, from click and collect to buy online, pick up in store, or even fulfilling online orders from store inventory. And a good example of this is micro-fulfillment centers in the back of grocery stores that are making maximizing the use of both the store footprint as well as the store inventory. And as the supply chain has started to stabilize now during this COVID world, we're really starting to be able to think more long-term, and we have the opportunity to really regroup and work towards the creation of a smart and nimble supply chain that can be capable of weathering future storms. So all of these things add up to one point, and that is that inventory visibility and optimization across the entire supply chain is key. So traditionally, the retail supply chain operated on a push distribution model where you saw a really hard split between applications, and you had segmented software systems planning and executing kind of in the same clockwise direction. The digitalization of our supply chains has really allowed for a shift from that more traditional push-based approach. As customers want what they want it when they want it, and accuracy and speed are the most important. So this is creating supply chains that are really more customer back in nature. And we have this continuous streaming of orders with expedited SLA requirements and often unplanned peaks. So it's necessary for us to really move towards a more pull-based approach with a customer-driven demand and information flow that's running more counterclockwise. And so we require, with this new world, more connected software that is more real-time, demand-driven, and consumer-centric. So we're able to see now a more integrated sequence of planning and production steps that can work in tandem across the supply chain to facilitate a really agile and resilient environment that's able to adapt and, to unexpected changes more quickly and more efficiently. So if you look here, we have seen in the supply chain traditionally three distinct elements, and that's intralogistics, supply chain execution, and then more recently, digital solutions. But the market trends that we've talked about are really driving the need for these to be more interdependent than ever before. And the connectivity made possible by Industry 4.0 really allows orchestration, not just within, but also across all of these elements, which really enables companies to keep up with this real-time customer demand and become faster and more granular and more precise. So an integrated process from end to end will really facilitate more overall situational awareness and allow you the opportunity for more contextualized and real-time decision-making. So I think there's really value in having the ability to connect what's happening within the four walls to what is occurring in the rest of the network, and in binding together those independent solutions through an integration framework that allows for a single global inventory view, which in turn allows you to exceed your own customers' expectations and help to maximize efficiency. So we know now more than ever in this post-COVID world, in an increasingly e-commerce world, our customers really want, they have high expectations and they want accuracy in the display and availability of product on your website. They want clear, fast, and accurate delivery options. They want to be able to have visibility of their delivery progress. And they want on-time and accurate delivery and no hassle returns. So this provides just an overall positive customer experience. So there's a human cost to having late or incorrect deliveries, whether that be critical medication or a birthday gift that's been shipped to a socially distanced friend, or even Santa delivering this year's hottest toys just in time for Christmas. And incorrect deliveries don't only affect revenue, they also lead to increased support costs, eroded brand reputation, overpaying your shipping bills, as well as customer churn. And it costs 7 times more to acquire a new customer than it does to retain an existing one. And we've seen that retailers are increasingly winning and retaining market share based more on their customer service and their customer experience than on the relative cost and quality of their product offering. So one of the main benefits that I see in a digitized supply chain is that the power of being able to combine data from across the full supply chain to help improve your decision making. For example, our distributed order management offering allows you to be able to manage the life cycle of an order and confidently make a promise to your customer. So it's going to provide global inventory, which gives you an enterprise level kind of control tower view of your complete supply chain. And this provides real-time inventory status and location updates, and really enables you and your stakeholders to make truly informed decisions to optimize your supply chain. It includes replenishment services to orchestrate inventory movements between locations, which helps to ensure greater supply chain resiliency, and by automating processes across rolling forecasts, across promotional activity, and actual demand levers with downstream inventory and transportation costs. And it also provides fulfillment determination to provide order orchestration across multiple sites based on rules to help improve delivery time and decrease costs to serve, while also maintaining optimum site capacity. So let's look at a few case studies to see where we've been able to do this at Dematic. So you can see here, this is one of the UK's largest food retailers. And in general, we manage fulfillment from a dark store in the UK that handles ambient and chilled as well as frozen product, and includes an automated shipping consolidation buffer. But the key here is that we also handle in-store picking and fulfillment from more than 220 stores across the UK. Now, often our customers really want to be able to make changes to improve picker efficiency when you're thinking about a warehouse environment. But here in the store environment, right after COVID hit, we were really able to quickly implement a change that allowed this grocer to help aid in their employees' safety and adhere to new social distancing guidelines. So the solution itself is very simple. It, as an employee goes to pick an order, the software will show them which aisle has the product that's needed to pick that order, but it will also alert them if that aisle already has another picker in it. And then that way, when the aisle is free, the worker can return to the aisle to pick, and this allows them to be able to maintain those social distancing guidelines, as well as prevents idle time from workers standing and waiting for the aisle to be clear. So the system was implemented very quickly. We went from customer go-ahead to delivery in just 1 day, and it was then rolled out across the entire grocer's network in just 3 days, and that included training all of the store pickers. And we were able to do this so quickly because of this integrated, streamlined network architecture that allowed us to make the update and quickly push it out to each of the nodes within the network. This case study is a good example of a customer with many arms to its fulfillment network. So this customer is an omni-channel retailer of trade tools, accessories, and hardware products, both in the UK and in Germany. And over the course of our history with this customer, we've really scaled our scope, starting with one e-commerce fulfillment center in the UK, and then quickly scaling to a second DC, this one managing superstore replenishment, as well as direct-to-consumer fulfillment in Germany. We then added carrier management, as well as trade counter replenishment and in-store logistics for a network of more than 700 trade counters. And these are small walk-in storefronts where a customer can place an order online or walk in and purchase, and the order is fulfilled from back of store inventory. So we really see this as a manual precursor to what we're seeing in the micro-fulfillment trends now. And then our distributed order management module takes into account all of the inventory across all of these buildings and provides them some real-time inventory availability. So what this allows for the customer is for them to be able to provide an excellent customer experience. So if you're doing a DIY project and you need a tool, you can get online and order it, and it would be fulfilled from the best source in the network, and also be able to fulfill their customer delivery promise of if you order by 10 p.m., you would receive it the next day. On the flip side, if you've put off your honey-do list for too long and you need that tool right now, you would be able to go onto the website and look to see which store closest to you has inventory of that item so that you could walk in and purchase it. Our final example is a well-established fashion omni-channel customer with whom we've been on a very extensive journey. Dematic was initially selected to deliver a manual WMS in the UK for their growing e-commerce business due to our breadth of experience in the fashion vertical, as well as to our partnership approach. We then expanded to add supply chain software with the goal to help them optimize their processes and help reduce their cost per unit. This expansion provided them full network visibility and also included a rollout of our carrier management system for global shipping. And it also included supplier portals, which allows their suppliers to be able to pre-advise shipments, allocate against POs, and create compliant carton labeling, which then also allows for automated receiving and reduced distribution costs. So this most recent project included a rollout of multiple WMS to support their North American operations, and this included both wholesale and e-commerce. So the result is that this customer now has a global inventory view and really allows them to be able to pull together a complete picture of what's happening across their complex network. So it was super speedy, but as I wrap up, a few of the key points that I hope that you're able to take with you is that optimization is important within the four walls, but it can really be so powerful when it's applied to the larger network because it enables you to achieve your ultimate goal, which is really providing happy revenue-producing customers. We take an industry solution approach here at Dematic. We understand that there's not a one-size-fits-all solution for everyone's fulfillment needs. And so you need a partner that has the breadth within their software portfolio to support you on your individual journey to deliver and we're the only solution provider able to truly deliver a complete supply chain solution from an automation-ready WMS all the way through to a pan supply chain offering. So it helps us to be able to address functionality such as global inventory visibility, as we discussed, but also order management through to e-commerce delivery management and in-store solutions. So the final point is that optimizing your operation across your entire supply chain network really allows for flexibility of network solutions from intelligent automated subsystems such as micro-fulfillment, which allow you to achieve a big goal of speedy order fulfillment using accessible automation within a very small footprint, to full warehouse optimization, which will help you streamline and synchronize your material flow and workflow to really help you reduce waste and increase efficiency within the four walls of your warehouse, all the way to a fully optimized supply chain network, which gives you total visibility and allows for optimized decision-making across your entire supply chain. So Dematic is a leading supplier of supply chain solutions, and we really look forward to speaking with you about how to build a plan for your future business. Thank you so much.
A quick note before I bring up our next presenter. We're not going to have Q&A during these presentations because each of the presenters is going to come back for a panel discussion at the end of these four presentations. So next up is John Chorley, the Chief Sustainability Officer and Group Vice President, Supply Chain Management Product Strategy for Oracle. John, it's all yours.
Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be speaking with you here today. Let me get my presentation up and rolling. So I think a lot of what Jen said earlier, I'd echo. I think that many companies are looking at how to respond to some of the challenges that we've seen in the recent pandemic, and in many respects, it's really an ideal time for us to be looking at reinventing supply chains. I think, as noted here, subjects that have possibly never been discussed before, certainly not at the dinner table and seldom at the boardroom. Supply chain disruption, global logistics network, what is an essential warehouse worker, scarcity, demand volatility. All of those things have become common conversations now and have become the subject of board level discussions for how to adjust supply chains, make them more resilient, think about sourcing strategies, multiple sourcing strategies as opposed to possibly single sourcing, how to increase virtualization of processes and increased automation, and how to really think about becoming more demand-driven and increasing flexibility. So it's a great opportunity as supply chain professionals to have those conversations about how we can reinvent supply chains within our businesses. And this really sits into a context, I think, where many of the status quo, many of the things that have shaped global supply chains have been evolving. And I think there's three main areas where those changes have been occurring. Shifting business and market trends, the move towards more customer centricity, which tends to require you to have sources of supply closer to your customer, be more responsive to changes in their needs and requirements. Same-day shipping, e-commerce requirements are also causing us to rethink our global logistics networks. Sustainability, I have that dual hat at Oracle, is also now a major driver. How do we think about becoming more sustainable to a business? Falling barriers to entry, it's fairly easier now for businesses to enter the market and to compete. Globalization is also shifting, I think, as labor costs are rising in certain geographies, as the trade barriers are beginning to increase. Also, the long-term trend of falling global logistics costs is at least flattened now. That's no longer a major driver. And then finally, technology. Obviously, we're here talking about technology capabilities in the supply chain, but those are really undergoing a real major change. Probably the last biggest change has been the introduction of the standardized shipping container. Now we're seeing 4 or 5 major trends that are impacting supply chain: cloud and SaaS, IoT technologies, blockchain, also 5G, which helps facilitate those things, the availability of AI machine learning techniques, and obviously also new manufacturing techniques, including 3D printing and digital manufacturing. All of those things are coming together to force changes in supply chains. And in many respects, what we've seen with COVID is really an acceleration, an increased pressure on the trends that were already existing. And against that, we have the classic challenge that most supply chain infrastructures are not able to respond to those challenges. Very often they've grown up organically. They've been accreted together with lots of piece part solutions, creating very often a very fragile integration-dependent solution. They can often have customizations that inhibit the ability to respond and innovate as business process changes. Visibility is challenging because of all of those different systems. And upgrades either can't be performed because of all of those conditions, or that they cost a great deal of money and drive lengthy upgrade cycles. So, the desire to respond and react is there, but often the IT infrastructure is a brake on the ability for the business to make those changes. And as we look at COVID, we see some of those issues also being reflected. This represents a sort of a pattern of response over time. Initially, just stay in business, use what you have, try and react, try and maybe adapt a little bit to the new normal, changing the way you ship and manage your goods, how you sell your products. A lot of that is, though, with the products you have at hand. You repurpose those and you try and sell value within the new context. Obviously, then you want to shift to building for the future, evolving who you are, maybe shifting to those different markets, different opportunities, and then finally, driving growth, become what you want to be, driving growth in those new and evolved markets. The challenge, of course, is these timelines often challenging to meet. You can introduce a new procedure, new processes and product options and so on. But as you look at some of the changes required to really create a platform desired to support growth, to support flexibility, to support resiliency, the timelines of those can be a little different. And so the important thing I think to recognize here is it's never too early to start, never too early to look at what it is you need to have that resilient infrastructure that will let you grow and survive in the new normal. And then finally, of course, it's a lot about culture. If you look at the longest term transition, it's often a cultural change. And then really thinking about how you provide the systems, capabilities, and infrastructure to support that is also very critical. And so what are the key elements that we want in a what we might call an informed or context-aware supply chains? Visibility to look at the supply chain holistically across all aspects of it, be able to drive insight to segment the different types of demand that you're seeing, and then to have real-time interactive planning that can use those insights, drive that into both tactical and strategic decision-making, have a more demand-driven approach to your inventory and fulfillment policies, collaborate across a multi-tier supply chain, and then obviously drive that into action. All of those things without the ability to respond and to act, aren't really going to deliver the value you need to the business. And a lot of those actions you want to be fully automated in order to increase the reduce the latency in those supply chains. So that is what Oracle has developed and delivered. We have reinvented our supply chain solutions over the last decade, rebuilding them completely from scratch on the cloud, for the cloud, building in a completely integrated set of supply chain capabilities involving all aspects of supply chain, planning, manufacturing, sourcing, order to cash, full logistics capabilities, automated warehouse support, as well as full logistics capabilities, maintenance capabilities, and also the ability to really think about your products in a full life cycle way, with the ability to define new products and services and drive that seamlessly into the rest of your supply chain. All built for and deployed on the cloud using the latest, greatest technology, and driving also some of the key advantages of the cloud, which is the ability to deliver continuous innovation, that it's easy for you to absorb without you being involved in complex integrations between multiple piece parts of a solution. And the way to look at that is connecting the digital thread, having deep functional integrations between all aspects of the solution. And I've listed some of the aspects of our supply chain solutions here, together with the latest and greatest technology, including things like AI and machine learning, and as well as the ability to drive that continuous innovation. And here's some examples of ways in which we've delivered solutions. This is 800 features on average delivered per quarter across all of our ERP and supply chain solutions, 200 in supply chain alone. These are major capabilities that we deliver them in a non-disruptive way, maintaining all of that integration for you so you don't have to worry about what this latest update is going to cause to your best of breed, if you like, cloud solution, and instead have a more comprehensive, out-of-the-box full solution that provides you that integration, that visibility across all aspects of supply chain that's going to best enable you to respond to changing market conditions and requirements. And here's an example of some of our customers. You can see some 3,000 or so supply chain customers on our cloud applications, on our latest and greatest cloud applications. And to note that every single one of them is running the current version of the software. We update it every quarter. and those updates are non-disruptive, and we maintain that ability to move these customers forward with the latest and greatest capabilities as and when they choose to deploy them, usually with an opt-in technology. But at the same time, to recognize that each of these different market segments, each of these different industries has different requirements, and the ability to tailor and adjust those processes for that industry segment is built in natively into the software, as well as the ability to make use of REST services, business events, and other extensibility techniques as and when required. So this diagrammatically represents our complete solution. And as I say, it is a comprehensive set of supply chain solutions that begins on the left-hand side with the ability to detect digital signals with our IoT capabilities to be able to analyze those time series data, to look for trends and anomaly detection, to drive that into AI and machine learning techniques in order to extract insights and predictions, cause and analysis, integrate that into our planning applications, which provide full planning solutions for both demand planning, supply planning, as well as S&OP and integrated business planning, and have that seamlessly interact with all aspects of execution, from product design, sourcing and procurement, collaboration, manufacturing, quality, order management, warehousing, inventory, transportation, and logistics, and to integrate that with the rest of the business ecosystem. And to expose all of that information in the way most best suited to the supply chain professional. Dashboards, built-in AI, built-in analytics, mobile apps, augmented reality, collaboration, digital assistance, and also blockchain for improved track and trace, particularly in the logistics sector. So you have a choice with Oracle. I think we have a great set of solutions. You don't need to implement these all at once. You can implement modular elements to that in order to think about how you position yourselves for this next new normal. Pivot forward, define your future with the opportunity to partner with Oracle. Thank you.
Thank you, John. One of the things I noticed while listening to all of the presentations today is how we're starting to see some continuity between solution providers and some of the practitioners. As an example, this morning, Mark Shirkness talked about the digital thread and its importance to what they're trying to do at GE Appliances. John was just talking about the digital thread and how that's enabled to those. We talked about innovation both with Gordon Liu and with Kenco. So I say we're starting to see some commonalities between them. Our next presenter is Rachel Hinks. She's Vice President of Strategic Market Development for Blue Yonder. Welcome, Rachel.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much. Excited to be here. We're hearing a lot of great common trends going on throughout the conversations, and happy to take a pass at what we're seeing from Blue Yonder. We are a software provider for the end-to-end supply chain network, and we'll talk a little bit about planning for the unplanned. And I want to start by taking a step back and looking at the moment we're in. COVID-19 is unquestionably a catalyst event. We've heard the terms digital transformation, fourth industrial revolution, post-industrial society for quite a bit and increasing over the past 40 years, really since the invention of the internet and World Wide Web started to take hold. But to really understand the magnitude of this transformation, we can take a look back on history. And when the first industrial revolution came to be, we saw a shift from the primacy of the time being around land and the production capabilities being focused on manual cottage industries of close-knit skilled workers. And then the invention of mechanical machines like the loom and others came into being and completely shifted how society operated. We saw the primacy of the time shift to that machinery and to a mass production scale of output. And this shifted the need in the workforce from skilled labor to more mechanical operators. what we're seeing is what we saw at the time is almost every aspect of society and daily life changed throughout the Industrial Revolution. And right now we're living through that next transformation. This time the catalyst being COVID-19, where the primacy of the time is shifting from mechanical operators and find and fix exception management to more technical skill, deep domain expertise, knowledge, machine learning, next-gen technologies, and predictive management of our supply chains. And all of this is really being accelerated by the advanced technologies that are already available, like the cloud, big data, artificial intelligence, and the Internet of Things. And what we see is that the supply chain is at the heart of this transformation. We're seeing the center of commerce shift from shopping malls and stores to online. We're seeing supply and demand conjoined, no longer being separate workflows. And we're also seeing increasing customer impatience or disloyalty, which is driving a need for real-time proactive responses within the supply chain to maintain that customer presence. We've seen that customers that have invested in next generation technologies like machine learning forecasting, control tower visibility, warehouse robotics, are achieving extraordinary advantage during this disruptive time. They're able to better sense, predict, and respond to a shifting market environment. Those companies that haven't yet invested in the transformation are finding themselves stuck in a lot of manual processes, working off Excel sheets, and just not really able to scale and keep up with the time, and in need of some of this transformation. And a few of the revolutionary themes that we're seeing as we go through this digital transformation. One, we're seeing e-commerce amplified, which sounds like a no-brainer given everything we've lived through the last few months. But if we step back and look at it, we're seeing revenue projections scaling from single-digit numbers to 20 to 30% of a company's overall revenue. That's going to impact major shifts in our workforce, in our retail centers, and in our distribution centers. We're also seeing logistics reimagined, how we're going to get products to our consumers. We saw the JD delivery robot. We see pop-up stores coming, pickup only sites. And as this transformation happens, we're going to need creativity in solving, because we know that last mile and home delivery is still very expensive. So we'll see new solutions emerging on the market. And even on the horizon, we're likely to see a gig delivery marketplace come to be. We're also seeing that seasonality is being eclipsed. So gone are the days where we can forecast based on annual trends and historical patterns. We need to shift to being more responsive to real-time signals, to shifting consumer trends, to disruptive news cycles, to shortages, to workforce disruptions. And we need to be able to respond to these changes while maintaining operational efficiency throughout our supply chain network. And finally, we see a challenge of our labor constraints and the workforce being amplified by the impact of COVID, by tariff wars that are going on, and by a lot of the immigration rules that have changed over the past few years here. We're seeing really a need to augment the workforce we have with intelligent automation. So how do we plan for the unplanned, and how do we really fulfill our potential as a supply chain of the next generation? I think it's important that we step back and also look at the total shareholder value metrics when we're making investment decisions. These are metrics that go beyond functional KPIs. They're tied to revenue growth, margin accretion, free cash flow generation. It's these metrics that are really going to tie us to bottom line impact and investments that we know are dependent on our ability to be agile, aware, predictive, responsive, and efficient throughout the end-to-end supply chain. For Blue Yonder, this means delivering an autonomous supply chain. Our moonshot was and is, even before COVID, to deliver this autonomous supply chain. And it's founded on a single Luminate platform. This means data is ingested once and then synchronized across all of your applications. And this allows for us to break down silos. We can now have an end-to-end seamless collaboration across different functions within the business. And we're also able to reduce latency by being deployed on the cloud. You have access to everything in real time, so you can be much more responsive and proactive to situations as they arrive. We've also injected a number of workflows and use cases with artificial intelligence and machine learning to truly augment that workforce and make sure we're getting the best out of the human-computer interaction. And on top of this, we talked about the rate of the digital transformation, the catalyst of COVID. So another thing we're doing is ensuring that all of our deployments have an initial go live within 8 to 12 weeks. We want to make sure that operational benefits and bottom line impact are delivered to our customers as soon as possible, so you can keep investing in your transformation and accelerate the ability to serve your customers. And on top of this, as we go end to end and as we span different industries within the supply chain, we're driving through deep industry expertise by delivering industry cloud deployments. These are deployments that are specific to an industry or sub-industry and harness the multiple years of experience we have to deliver prescriptive workflow-based deployments. So allowing you to not only get value quickly, but also to ensure that you're getting the best the industry has to offer in terms of optimized solutions and prescriptive workflows. So I want to take a minute now to take a step back and look at what is that extraordinary advantage that's delivered by deploying some of these next generation technologies. And first, we'll take a look at a medical manufacturer. This is a customer of Blue Yonder's who had deployed Luminate Control Tower. Now, Luminate Control Tower does a number of things. One, it looks at inventory at rest. So this is a snapshot of your end-to-end supply chain network, looking at stock across the board. It also looks at inventory in motion. What's going in, out of, between different locations, and on what transportation vehicle is it moving? Airline, ocean liner, truck, any shipping lane that it's on. And we also track hot items. Hot items are determined by smart logic that understands items that would have a bigger impact to your bottom line, maybe high sell-through rate, maybe big margin impact, maybe something that has low inventory. And this helps you prioritize which disruptions in your supply chain you resolve first. Very real example of this customer during the COVID times, they were tracking shipments of COVID-19 test kits into the US for worldwide distribution. And one of the shipments got delayed. And we had to support connecting the supplier with the customer via the control tower application so that they could find this delayed shipment, pull the COVID test kits off of that delayed truck and put it on an expedited shipping vessel to get to the customer and support our needs immediately. Another example in the COVID times where we have some next generation technologies deployed is with a grocer. They had our Luminate Demand Edge and Luminate Store Fulfillment solutions deployed. In this case, we have machine learning driven forecasts. These take in hundreds of different demand signals to sense and predict the shifting consumer trends from internal and external sources. And then it's coupled with an intelligent optimization logic that's aligned to procurement calendars and supply plans. When COVID-19 hit, the operators at our grocery stores were actually quoted saying they ended up taking their hands off of the overrides and letting the machine run. The machine was able to keep up and more accurately respond to the shifting trends within the marketplace and allowed the human capacity, the workforce, to spend more time on the supply side, finding alternate sourcing routes and making the overall combined human-computer integration more effective for the entire operation. And on a similar thread, we see a parcel deliverer that Blue Yonder is working with who had deployed our robotics hub. Now, the robotics hub is a set of capabilities that works to augment the workforce by having a robot optimize a picking route and order the priority of tasks that take place. So when COVID hit and we saw a huge influx in the number of packages and also had a disrupted workforce, this customer was able to maintain smooth operations and really optimize for the situation at hand by using the robotics capabilities and augmenting and optimizing the pick paths and routes throughout this warehouse that was under a lot of pressure given the changing times. And finally, I want to talk to you about a softlines retailer that had deployed Blue Yonder's e-commerce inventory and commits. This solution is one that really takes us from a channel-based supply chain network to a channel-less or omni-channel fulfillment network. So no longer are lost sales derived by a channel's supply and demand. Now everything is interconnected. You have a holistic view of your network and you have access end to end. This also means that with smart fulfillment logic, you can reduce markdown across the network. And this customer was able to take advantage of the smart logic that's part of our fulfillment optimization. It goes beyond basic OMS logic, which would maybe match zip code of an order to the nearest location, to more cost to serve, cost to fulfill metrics like the wage rate of those that would be picking the items for fulfillment. It might look at the inventory and sell-through rates of products at different locations that could be used to fulfill. And it would also look at the shipping costs of different options and locations to fulfill from. So when COVID hit, this customer was able to modify the wage rates due to workforce disruptions. And actually on the West Coast, we know in addition to COVID, there were wildfires that were impacting the shipping lanes and the cost to ship over there. So by changing the shipping rates, they could step back and let the algorithms optimize the best way to manage their network and respond to the shifting fulfillment and e-commerce disruptions that were going on. And the best part about this is everything from a user perspective, availability, where items were ready to be picked up, what the shipping options were and the delivery times were visible on a user interface to the customer in near real time. So you elevate customer experience while optimizing the supply chain network. So I think we're in a very interesting time. I think those companies that really embrace the potential of this transformation and invest in solutions for the future that will allow them to scale, to be more agile, to really be integrated end to end and serve a delightful customer experience are the ones that are going to survive and thrive in this next generation supply chain. Thank you.
Our final presenter is Drew Ellers, Global Futurist and Global General Manager of SmartPack at Zebra Technologies. Just a real quick note, Drew's in an area where there's some heavy storms and power outages. If we lose him, we hope you'll understand everybody's broadcasting live, relying on Wi-Fi and Zoom. But Drew, welcome, and we look forward to your presentation.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Good evening for where you're at in the world. Just going to talk shortly about moving from the Internet of Things to the Internet of Intelligence. It's really about providing agility. And obviously with today's storms, I'm trying to be very agile. So Rachel, thanks for jumping in ahead of me there. Really appreciate that. As we look at a couple different things, we've had a microclimate that, there hasn't been a playbook for, with what Jen and John and Rachel were all talking about before, is that, consumers, especially around retail, which has put a strain on supply chain over the last few years, has developed these liquid expectations. What I want, when I want it, and how I want it, and how I want it delivered. And that could be, to my house, that could be the trunk of my car. And there's a shift of where fulfillment needs to happen. Enterprises thought that they had 3 years to really get there from an online growth perspective. But as you can see in this graph, that, not only those consumer habits haven't changed, but they've only accelerated. And, from a micro event perspective with COVID, those online sales have doubled, just as my, previous panelists had described before. And so they really had 3 months to get there instead of 3 years, which have kept all of us on this phone very busy. Which is interesting is because if you look at everybody that's on this panel today, from a Zebra point of view, we're all partners. So we're creating ecosystem approaches to help solve these problems each and every day. And so when you look at the supply chain, it's no longer linear in nature. It can't be linear, straight line from a fulfillment network perspective, just as Jen was talking about earlier, from being more dynamic. And what really needs to happen is be more of a hub and spoke model, where you're looking at each node becomes a fulfillment center. And that could be your traditional brick and mortar store, augmenting, and then really coming from an evolution standpoint, warehouse centers, micro fulfillment centers, just as everybody mentioned before, and even these emerging areas called warehomes, right, where people actually storing goods and distributing them too, from a gig economy point of view too. So there's lots of different introductions, but at the end of the day, fulfillment's happening everywhere, and it's happening very dynamically in real time, and that presents a lot of different challenges. So the way that we think about approaches before, where Jen was talking about these systems of records before from a warehouse management perspective, CRM, ERPs, and then obviously in medical care, EMRs. Those were digital innovations in themselves, but they're now static in nature, because that is really data at rest, where we're calling upon that data, and we're having to look back at it from a reflective point of view. And what we really need to get to, and what most of the solutions that have been described here today, which are fantastic, are really about developing a systems of reality, where you can get a real-time view into what's happening, but you can also help impact change in the moment of need. So really looking at it from moving from a static environment to a dynamic environment and delivering on that systems of reality. So in order to get there, you kind of look at, what can I do to digitize that today, right? So the items from a physical perspective have not changed, but how we provide a digital voice does. So anything from a label, barcode, tag, beacon, a location, those are all things that we can provide context on, just as Rachel was talking about with the COVID-19 tests and tracking that through supply chain, along with the vaccines that we hope to get shortly, right, to get out of this thing. So as we do that, it's great to have a digital voice, but if without having that context behind it, you can't really drive that real-time action and get to that systems of reality. And that's really about you can get the who, the what, the when, and the where, but you really got to know the why, right? Why do I need to have that COVID-19 test that Rachel just talked about? Why do I have to have it in time? Well, for health and safety, right? For our kids to go back to school, for us to go and get our shift workers back into the warehouse to ship out goods. There's lots of differences, but you got to know why we're using that information, and you got to be able to use it in real time. So as long as you look at that why, and being able to attach it, it's just a bunch of noise, right? You're just creating systems of record, big data, and you're not actually able to drive anything from that perspective. But as you layer on the why over that, you start to look at how you're solving for those problems. So if I'm having constraints and I need to accelerate my ability from an e-commerce perspective, as Rachel, Jen, and John talked about with the huge growth there, double digits, since March. It's interesting is because now you have to get more through the supply chain. Plus, you have more dynamic fulfillment models such as buy online, pick up in store that everybody mentioned, buy online, pick up curbside. And those seem very similar, but they're very hard to execute on. It's really easy to do it when you have 5 people, executing that from a buy online, pick up in store perspective. But if you've got 50, 100 during the day, it becomes extremely challenging because your whole framework of reinventing your store and your workflow changes each and every day. So how do we do that? As many people mentioned, and Rachel just finished up with some very excellent case studies around artificial intelligence injections, which is, we're now living in AI economy with human intelligent automation. So it's not just about being able to interpret and drive better decisions through machines learning the data, but it's also how do I take that information and bring it back down to that human or that robotic worker from an intelligence automation perspective. And as we're all learning these new workflows, such as that example with buy online, pick up on curbside, those human workers have to relearn what those workflows are. So if we can help them by driving intelligent automation and automating that for them, it helps them with their decision support to be able to fulfill and execute on that model. Plus, it also enables them not to have cognitive fatigue at the end of the day. And that's very critical because during this time that we've all experienced across the globe, doesn't matter where you're at, we've all been affected by it. There's also a mental health perspective of that. And people are getting burnt out on their jobs, especially shift workers and those folks that are trying to learn the new workflows. So as we look at not only interjecting artificial intelligence in there, but driving that intelligence automation is absolutely crucial. And this is how we get here, which is the framework, which is everybody on this phone, Dematic, you've got IBM, you've got Cisco, you've got Blue Yonder, and you've got Oracle. We all play in this ecosystem to help solve these problems. And what's really critical to do that is not to think about the technology first, but really think about clearly identifying what problem you're trying to solve for, what outcomes you want, and then back into that ecosystem, right? And that might take, 5 or 6 or 7 partners. We've got 10,000 partners globally, 2,400 ISVs, of which everybody's on the phone here is a partner. And what's interesting is I think that we're all kind of coming together around this common purpose, right? I hear the common stories, the common issues that we're trying to solve for. And I think it's kind of cool that we're driving this whole adverse accelerated innovation in the supply chain together, because at the end of the day, it touches every vertical, whether it's retail, manufacturing, transportation, logistics, healthcare, everything revolves around supply chain. So really looking at that and developing that abstraction layer over that systems of record to develop that systems of reality is what we all have to do. So, I look forward to participating on the panel. I try to catch us up a little bit there and be very agile from that perspective. So thanks for your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
We're now going to bring back all 4 of our panelists, who will be joined by Tom Ward and Darren Millard for a panel discussion. Tom, Darren, we're going to try and keep this to about 20 minutes, about 12:15 Central Time, and the microphone is all yours.
That is awesome. Thank you, Bob. I'm assuming everyone can hear me. So, the panelists brought up a number of tremendous issues as we were thinking about what's happening as we evolve SaaS models and we think about how do we use that to optimize what we're doing in supply chain environment. And, even at Cisco, over the past several years, we've moved from a hardware-centric organization to more of a SaaS and services-centric organization. And so, Jen, I'm going to come to you and ask you a quick question here. You talked about, being able to combine data from across the supply chain and tying it in ways that allow you to, enable a pull-based approach for your customers, to allow them to meet customer-driven demand. A lot of that requires integration at a software level. And so what I'm trying to understand is, if you look at this kind of hybrid multi-cloud environment of the future and the way that things are moving, and you think about the current API economy that exists today, how are you designing and developing your applications to be able to integrate with other applications and other data sources to enable the future that you're envisioning?
Yeah, thanks, Darren. So we're certainly seeing more forward-thinking companies wanting this more API serviced architecture, where rather than each system kind of owning its own data and scope, they're all becoming more connected and reliant on a faster interchange of information. So we're seeing a large need for both real-time process information, real-time event visibility, and where we would historically look at those things individually, we're now recognizing the value of being able to combine that real-time execution data with the analysis of historical events in order to optimize that next move, as a lot of my, my fellow panelists have outlined. And what we're seeing is, execution systems aren't necessarily designed to hold that amount of data or crunch it in that way, but a service can operate in different ways and be more intelligent. So there's a few ways that we're doing this today. For example, with product substitution services for grocers. We have a large grocer that we work with, where previously we would have put all of that data kind of native to our system and keep it contained. But at this grocer, it's a service where we and other systems can call it. So it makes everything a lot more nimble and a lot more flexible. Another example is, as at our one of our multi-channel retailers, we have a supply chain order management system that sits above many warehouses and has a bit in the middle that allows for an exchange of data, but also is able to house, kind of enormous amounts of data that's available to many systems, which could include the website, their purchasing system, for example, and it's all via API. So it allows for things like global inventory, which I think we've talked about quite a bit this morning. And as we're seeing kind of this migration to e-commerce, there's a big dynamic shift in what we're doing with the software, where we can connect commerce with supply chain, with warehouses, and using distributed order management kind of as that centerpiece. So if you start with a web order, for example, global inventory is going to look at where that inventory exists, and then your replenishment service can look at where it's needed. For example, if there's a promotion, and then you'll have your fulfillment determination service, and then your carrier management could include things like a label service, delivery options service that can help maximize based on data like the size of your basket, where you can get it, when you can get it, and how much it would cost to deliver, and provide order status information across multiple areas to be able to be really super efficient. And I think we're seeing the shift, and now the risk that we have to make sure that we're maintaining awareness of as we're designing our systems in this way is that now we're becoming reliant on these services versus having everything native in our system for what we need. So we really need to be able to make sure that we're being mindful of this, because if that service were not available, it could limit our ability to have that high throughput that's also required. So just being aware of that as we're designing our systems.
No, that makes sense. That's tremendous. John, I'm going to come to you with the same question. You talked about, the fact that Oracle, that during this transformation that you've undergone, the way that you've redesigned your applications have really been focused on building them for and deploying them on the cloud. So again, in this kind of hybrid multi-cloud environment, how are you thinking about your application's ability to integrate with other software solutions?
Well, but I'd actually approach that from a slightly different perspective, and that is to say that I think that, you know, it meant for many companies, the journey to the cloud has been taken in a sort of a piece by piece manner, you know, essentially trading off capital expenditure for operational expenditure and doing tactical movements, tactical deployments on the cloud. The net result has often been that folks turn around and look at the kind of deployment that they've got, which is, you know, let's call it best of breed on the cloud, with very complex integrations between those various cloud applications. Also, frankly, with updates that are outside of their control of each of those modules, where we update 4 times a year. Most other cloud companies are somewhat similar. So you have a situation where many of these companies now have essentially an uncontrollable set of updates to deal with. And instead of moving out of the technology business and into the business process management business and the business process change business, which most, I think, organizations want to do, they're mired still in trying to keep these very complex environments up and running. Now, yes, APIs can help with that process, but it still firmly puts the customer, who is the only one now with that particular combination of products, you know, firmly having the responsibility for managing all of that. Fair. So our position, frankly, at Oracle is, look, you know, we're not saying we're going to do everything, but we're also saying be strategic about who you partner with and try and minimize the number of moving parts. I mean, cloud and APIs have not changed the laws of physics. It's still much more complicated to deal with multiple systems than it is to deal with fewer systems.
Right.
And so, you know, our basic value proposition is, look, you know, be strategic, think about who your core partners are, keep that number low, and you know, benefit from pre-built integration with large blocks of functionality that, you know, let you focus on the hard stuff. The hard stuff is business process change. You don't want to have to be distracted by, you know, maintaining custom-built integrations.
No, that's an interesting perspective, John, and you're right. Simplicity often leads to success, and if we can find a way to do what we're trying to accomplish and make it easy for our customers and make it easy for everyone, then we get there a lot faster. So great point.
Great, and Tom's going to pick up on the second question here. This one will be addressed to Andrew and Rachel, picking right up where John left off with the client at the center of everything that we do. Firstly, to Andrew, can you share the means by which you assess client satisfaction with your solution, and how do you collect that feedback and respond to it? Is it through Net Promoter Score or some other mechanism? And if so, how do you manage through that?
I think this is a very important question. So we have a culture of customer first at Zebra, and we pay very close attention to this. We definitely use traditional approaches such as CSAT and NPS. We also use a customer effort score, which also shows how easy or difficult it is to do business with each other from that perspective, because that's really where the experience starts. And then, you know, from a solution standpoint, we have gotten really granular on these approaches. And one is that we have actually brought, during a deployment with the customer, brought the customer into our Jira feedback boards within software, so they can actually open up Jira tickets. That gives a real-time feedback loop, you know, from an agile approach back into our engineering teams for level 3 support, so that, you know, any kind of difficulty, feedback, good or bad, we're getting that in real time and getting that back into our solutions teams from a deployment standpoint. And then 2 is we also have customer advisory boards that are not fabricated or you know, all sunshine and rainbows, where our stakeholders, our partners within those customer groups have really gotten open voices and shared their concerns with us. And we make action plans off of it, where we track it basically like a to-do list and make sure that we're backing up with say-do attitudes to make sure that we can execute on that. And if we fall short in some area, we come to the carpet, we tell them how we're going to do it, and then we talk about how we're going to get back to there. Anytime you're in these kind of environments, you're always going to have different challenges. And I think it's, to John's point, it's finding the right partners and the customer mindsets to work through those challenges together from a partnership perspective.
Sounds great. Thank you very much. And Rachel, your Blue Yonder experience, you're out there a little further still in terms of applying some of these new and next-gen technologies. How do you make sure you draw that back to the client and feedback from the client as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So echoing what Drew said, we're a very customer-first organization, and empathy about a year ago was named as our 4th core value. So this is something that's very close to what we focus on, and we do, similar. We do NPS score tracking after every deployment. We send a survey out to get immediate feedback. We also, our support team send out CSAT surveys, and it's a continuous learning cycle from those two perspectives. The other thing we've done that's a bit newer over the past year or so, we've rolled out what's called a triad model. And this is where for each deployment, we have a customer executive, a customer success manager, and a technical account manager deployed to the project. And the customer executive, they're responsible for the overall account experience, for the customer experience. They'll do the commercial sales negotiations. Then the customer success manager is really a strategic advisor and a program management operator. So a lot of the project management, but also day-to-day strategy. And to John's point, it's a very complicated environment. So this customer success manager is in there in the weeds with the team to really help deploy our solutions and also strategize. And then the technical account manager is there for the customer health. They're looking at things like SLAs and metrics. They're helping with issue resolutions on the technical side. So we found by really deploying a triad to our accounts that have these different depths of skill set, we're able to provide a seamless experience and help customers realize value from our solutions.
Super. Darren, you want to take the next set?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to Drew. Drew, talked about, understanding the why. And, a lot of times understanding that why requires a tremendous amount of access to data. And he also talked about providing greater visibility at the edge. And so, one of the things that you think about in enabling this visibility and leveraging access to all this data to make decisions is security. And we've seen in the past how, vendors can cause harm to their customers and vice versa if security is not paramount, right? And so as you're thinking about this, Drew, and as more organizations are adopting your software and as you're leveraging SaaS more across your own supply chain, how are you thinking about cybersecurity concerns, both for yourselves as well as your customers and your vendors and other partners, just to make sure that the entire supply chain ecosystem is secure?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's definitely a why that's always asked. And I think this is a daily concern probably for everybody on the phone, right? Yeah. And, we do deployments on-prem, hybrid, and cloud, as most folks do on the phone today. And I think that, my number one recommendation always when we're designing solutions is security from the start. And it has to be not only your first thought, your middle thought, but your end thought and your continued thought. You're always thinking about security. It's got to be there from the design thinking point of view, the ideation. If you don't have on your whiteboard when you're coming up with an idea to deploy a solution to a customer, security next to it and what you're going to do for that plan, you've already lost. You've already put yourself into a technical debt perspective. Plus, you put risks not only for your company's brand and your solution, but also your customer's environment. So you got to make sure that you're thinking about it from the start, and it's got to be looked upon, audited all the time, because there's always new threats that are coming out, especially if you're deploying in several different countries and different multiple environments and different approaches, whether it's on-prem, hybrid, or cloud. You've got to continuously think about it. And, one of the things that we've done is we've invested in an entire security team. I'm sure most folks on the team has one, but we have them actually in our planning increments for software and solutions development. So they're sitting there looking at our technical requirements all the way down to the stories broken down to the engineering cycles to make sure that, one, we're not only in compliance, but we're thinking ahead for future generations of what challenges may or may not come up. So we don't want to plan in a reactive sense. We want to plan proactively and make sure that security is, there from the start, the middle, the beginning, and ongoing.
No, great perspective. Security is paramount, right? And so making sure that it is integrated into every phase of the design and implementation process is really the only way that you can help your customers to be successful. John, same question. When Oracle thinks about cybersecurity and the threats that exist to not only yourselves but also to your partners and customers and vendors, how are you addressing security as an issue?
I think security has long been part of Oracle's core brand. We recognize that if we're going to be successful as a SaaS provider, that security is absolutely central to that, and that really follows a long history of being, a very secure operating system, very secure database, and so we're kind of building on that. And I would echo the earlier comments. You have to build it in. I mean, if you take a traditional on-premise solution and kind of port it to the cloud, it's going to have all sorts of security vulnerabilities.
Right.
In addition, you have to think about security in the way you operate those environments as well. Instead of, there has to be other mechanisms for people to achieve the things that they need to achieve that are secure, and those require interaction with the cloud operating environment as well as obviously the way you develop, test, and prove out the software. It really is a very fundamental change to move from on-premise mindset to SaaS operations. From a security perspective, is a comprehensive review of everything you do, and that's certainly the way that we approach it. As I say. If you're a SaaS provider and you're not putting it number one, then the first security breach you have is going to be, a near-death experience. So you have to be extremely cognizant of all of that and really super serious. And I think the longer that folks get comfortable with SaaS operations, you still have to be completely diligent, but a lot of these sort of unwarranted concerns begin to dissipate as you prove yourselves consistently, in the marketplace.
Great point. Great perspective, John. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, last question. Thank you, Darren. Thank you, team. This goes to Rachel and Jen. So on the rungs of the AI ladder, from collecting, organizing, analyzing, and infusing data, you each spoke about how you're applying and bringing more and more artificial intelligence, machine learning into your practices. Let's start with Rachel this time and tell us about what you're doing and how you're applying AI towards this and where you are on the progression, both for you and your clients.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tom. Yeah, so artificial intelligence and machine learning is at the heart of innovation and our new Luminate solutions that we're rolling out. And I think when we think about machine learning solutions, we have to think about three aspects of them. One is around a common data model and an API. So Blue Yonder has established this across all of our solutions. You ingest data once in a common API, and you can access that data now across a number of different solutions, meaning you can run different algorithms and models on the same data. So that's a huge change from on-prem deployments and other architecture setups where we don't have access to that common data model. The second element, I think, is really on understanding the health of your data early on. So we've created what we call internally the data doctor. Externally, it's data doctor or data management and analytics system. But what it does is it uses all of our experience from the data scientists, the project managers that have been working on machine learning-based solutions to check the health of data early on. So when data comes in, it can follow all the rules of an API, but it might still be incorrect data. So for example, you might have a negative price that would flow through the API, get into the system, but it would cause issues with the machine learning model because we know negative prices aren't a thing in reality. So our data doctor checks the health of data and proactively helps customers and our own data scientists resolve these data quality challenges to get better outputs from the model. And it also provides insights. You now have data in the same location under the same umbrella for the first time ever. So you're going to be able to get more insights around maybe different sell-through rates and differences across locations. So there's a lot of value to not only checking the health of your data, but having it in one place. And then the third element is really, once you get an algorithm that works, you have clean data, you have to be able to run it at production scale. And I think this is where a lot of the challenge comes, especially for customers who are hiring data scientists into their own environments. Identifying an algorithm that works is the first step, but getting it to run at a scale. If you take a grocery store and you think about how many items are in that grocery store, and then think about how many grocery stores are in just your city alone, and we provide a machine learning algorithm that predicts per day, location, and item in the store, what the forecasted demand is going to be for today and the next, horizons out for planning purposes. That is a scale that most software hasn't seen before. So being able to get an architecture that supports that is, I think, the third element. And we've been able to deliver that, and that's what our customers are using today.
Super. Congratulations for that, Rachel. And Jen, I think you might be the last response between us and a quick lunch break. So not too much pressure, but if you can net out your AI experience and how to apply that to your journey at Demantech and for your clients.
Sure. Yeah. So I think, when we apply this to automated systems like we do at Dematic, I think, we've traditionally relied on algorithms that are programmed by humans. And these are problems that are very difficult and they are just being approximated. So by using machine learning, we're able to really combine all of these droves of data with the algorithms to make it go faster and cost less. So here at Dematic, we have our digital solution development team. That's our next chapter, and they're focused on AI enablement and support. And some of the things that we're working on, a little bit different in the automated systems space because we're applying it to mechatronics. So we're using vision-enabled systems for orientation detection. So rather than having 50 light sensors in a row driving the conveyor belt, we're able, and then having to rely on, human intervention to reorient skewed containers, we can have 1 or 2 vision-enabled cameras to detect container orientation and then use an actuator to correct it. So we're really working on that vision-enabled roadmap here at Dematic. Other things that we're working on is recommender systems for a true digital twin. So how can we optimize simulating various different scenarios and letting the computer decide based on that data, which is the optimal best scenario for thinking about expansion of a system or how to use mechatronics in a different way. And then Rachel pointed this out earlier, but we're using it a lot to forecast demand for e-commerce solutions. So if we think about looking, for an example, at like a multi-shuttle to store slow movers and then picking fast movers manually, the product variation and the seasonality of products and the, kind of the unplanned e-commerce demands make this very difficult. So if we use machine learning and test things like neural networks and gradient descent, we're finding that we're getting a lot better results than traditional historical averages. And this is really helping us make better use of our material handling technologies. And then finally, I think another application of machine learning that we're looking at is for maintenance of equipment. So it'll help us figure out when the equipment is going to fail. But as Rachel pointed out a minute ago, you have to be able to run that to scale. And what we're finding so far is that the ROA isn't quite there unless it's for a hypercritical operation. So we're still looking at this, we're still researching it, but those are some of the things that we're working on. And I think even at this point, if we wanted to do kind of a custom solution or a consulting engagement, we'd be happy to explore that with our customers. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, John, Rachel, Drew. This was fantastic. Selfishly, I wish we could keep going for another hour and continue the conversation because there are a ton of questions that we didn't get to. But again, we really appreciate all of your time, your input, and your insights and sharing with us what your organizations are doing. So this was fantastic. To the audience, I want to say thank you as well for your time and your participation. And we're going to leave you with a takeaway question. As we kind of ended the conversation talking about AI, how are you all leveraging data and analytics in your own organizations, either directly for the solutions that you're designing or for the SaaS vendors that you're working with, right? And what role does data and analytics play in your current software portfolio as you think about both structured and unstructured insights? And so, we just want you to think about that and really evaluate kind of where you are on this data and analytics journey that we're all, kind of moving forward on these days. So again, thank you for your time. And Bob, I will go ahead and turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Darren. And thanks to both you and Tom for moderating it. It's great to have the perspective of people who do this every day. Also, I just marked down the two of you for another 1 hour at our next conference. So you did such a great job. That's the end of the block. We're now going to take about a 10-minute break.
We'd like to remind all our attendees about the leaderboard game. The leaderboard game gives everyone the opportunity to win thousands of dollars in prizes simply for participating in the conference. And again, we'd like to thank the sponsors of the NextGen Conference, especially our Diamond level sponsor, Honeywell Intelligrated, our Platinum sponsor, the Association for Supply Chain Management, and our Gold sponsor, Alemica. Now we'd like to ask our attendees to take a walk through our exhibit hall before the next session. All of the exhibitors have a representative ready should you have